Diversity in Dietetics, the Past, Present, and Future. My name is Cassie Vanderwall, and this is a manager brief video exploring diversity in the healthcare profession. We will spend time introducing this topic, stating the problem, and truly discussing the issue of diversity disparities in dietetics. In this process, we'll review the literature, as well as explore best practices for diversifying dietetics, and then conclude with some recommendations for future research to truly remedy this disparity. So first, what is dietetics? Well, dietetics is the science or art of applying the principles of nutrition to the diet, and it's the profession for registered dietitian nutritionists and diet technicians registered throughout the United States and the world. It's important to point out that there's a difference between dietitians and nutritionists, primarily due to their educational preparation. And in this case, we're focusing on primarily the professional field of dietitians. And diversity. What's diversity? Well, diversity is any variation in race, ethnicity, gender, ability, geographic location, and age among a group of people. Racial diversity in the United States is changing. In 2000, non-Hispanic white individuals accounted for nearly 3/4 of the population, and it's estimated that by 2050, there will be tremendous growth in non-Hispanic Black, Hispanic, and Asian groups, and will decrease this proportion of non-Hispanic whites to just about half, as you can see before you. And this will include growth from the Asian subgroup from 3% to 10.3%, non-Hispanic Black from 12.3% to 15.7%, and great gains in the Hispanic segment from 9% to 22.5%. Again, a big difference from today's society. So what are the implications? Well, minorities or racial ethnic groups have a greater risk and prevalence of both health and academic inequalities in the U.S. The resulting racially and ethnically diverse patient base will also demand a diverse healthcare workforce that is capable of providing culturally competent care that meets their individual needs related to literacy, language, and varying degrees of assimilation or acculturation. However, this discrepancy may impact the quality of nutrition-related care more so than other disciplines because food selection is integrated into a complex cultural and behavioral system. Food is not only essential for life, but is a powerful symbol of cultural identity. Dietary patterns are crafted over years of habits and formed by family, friends, and culture. This beckons an increase in cultural competence and responsivity. If the workforce fails to meet this demand, then the patient-provider relationship will truly suffer. Bias will result, disparity will only increase, the health of these individuals will suffer, and Americans will pay the cost. So what is the solution? To diversify to meet this demand. And this implies a need for change in the way that healthcare and academia in the world of dietetics are provided. At present, dietetics is less diverse than the present-day United States, and 80% or 88% of dietitians are non-Hispanic white, with a measly 3% from non-Hispanic Black, 4% Hispanic, and 5% Asian. Dietetic education is more diverse, and 1/3 of the students are from diverse backgrounds. However, this identifies the discrepancy or lack of diversity within dietetics, and it's important to note that this is not unique to dietetics. So what's the desired state? Well, the desired state is to mirror the U.S. population or to beat it and have half of those dietitians be white and the other half of dietitians make up the current underrepresented groups. And in the last 20 years, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics and the Commission for Dietetic Registration recognize the need and have encouraged racial and ethnic diversity and the encouragement and increase of cultural competency trainings. Some observations from leaders in the field Megan Waltz, who is the program director of a dietetic internship and Department of Culinary and Clinical Nutrition at UW Health, states that the profession, dietetics, as a whole can sometimes come across as very conservative and non-inclusive. White women, higher education, middle class. That's what we see today. So we are hoping to see increases in diversity as we're seeing in dietetics education. In fact, there's been an increase in males from 3 to 12% in the last several years, stable populations of non-Hispanic Black students, but significant increases in Hispanic student population, which is wonderful because that's going to grow to meet the growing segment of population in the U.S. Dr. Mary Gregoire from Ascend, the Accreditation Council for Education in Nutrition and Dietetics, is excited to point out that dietetic education is as diverse as it's ever been. But she also notes that there is a lack of diversity in the profession, and this suggests that there are things about the field of dietetics that are not of interest to specific student groups. And this creates a challenge because the students graduating will be working with a population different from themselves, which is what we pointed out in our implications. So she points to the rationale for this. There's barriers to dietetic education and barriers to becoming an RDN or a dietitian. These may include disparities in faculty support, implicit and perceived bias while in educational programming, and awareness, or when individuals and where individuals learn about the field. This differs at present by race ethnicity. White students often learn about the profession earlier than non-white students, and students of diverse backgrounds are often referred to dietetics by a professor in college or later in life by a dietitian herself or himself. High school educators and counselors rarely encourage students to enter dietetics. And then there's barriers to becoming an RDN. At present, there are shortages in dietetic internships or this education programming. There's lofty academic requirements, and the application and matching process, culminating with a computerized test for our registration exam, is a very difficult process to navigate. And we've found too that there are disparities in employment after graduation for non-white dietitians. So what are the best practices to move forward since this change is required and needed? Well, there are 3 that are general strategies and can be applied to any program facing disparities. These include self-examination, mentoring, and pipeline programs. First, we must examine ourselves. We must examine our personal and professional biases. We must examine the program barriers and disparities within our own educational programming, as well as our professional self. So reflecting on implicit bias, or specifically bias in judgment and or behavior that results from subtle cognitive processes that often operate at a level below conscious awareness and without intentional control. We also need to examine barriers and disparities within our programming, as we mentioned, those aforementioned barriers, and identifying how we can alter those or improve the disparities by increasing faculty and peer support and helping underrepresented populations break through into education and break further into the profession. One way to examine this could be via student surveys and interviews, but most importantly, we'll want to recognize an avenue for examining these barriers that is safe to the individuals that we're questioning. And then mentoring. Dietetic educators and clinicians can serve as mentors and role models to help generate an earlier interest in the dietetics career among individuals of diverse backgrounds. This mentor-mentee relationship can be a safe place to explore the prospective career and may provide an opportunity for trustworthy advice and guidance from the mentee to the mentor. When the mentor and mentee share the same race or ethnicity, benefits will certainly prevail because they can relate on a cultural level. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics supports this and has created mentoring toolkits, e-mentoring programs so that geographic location won't stand in the way, as well as a Diversity Leaders Program, which is a 2-year program for students of underrepresented groups and allows them to participate in a mentorship program, leadership training, and networking opportunities. And then the final idea for diversifying dietetics is pipeline programming. A pipeline program increases awareness of a profession during the early academic years, such as kindergarten through high school, and the intention is really to expose students to lesser known occupations that may be facing diversity disparities and or shortages. And we know dietetics is facing both. So if elementary health educators or high school teachers and counselors were well versed in the dietetic field of study, this may help. But we also think that we could truly start to take advantage of STEM programs as well. This is an ideal pipeline program for dietetics simply because it's grounded in heavy science and chemistry, just like dietetics. So, in conclusion, it is evident that disparities exist within dietetics and dietetic education due to the growing diversity of the population and the slow response of the profession. Educators, students, clinicians, patients, and professional leadership all recognize the need to diversify. And present causes of the current state of diversity include barriers to equal opportunities within dietetic education. So, one can remedy this issue by identifying, acknowledging, and mitigating bias among professionals and educators, as well as establishing and increasing involvement in mentorship programs. And finally, via the formation of functional pipeline programs that can increase a student's knowledge of the field, as well as provide that critical support for navigating the academic standards and that application process. So it's evident that additional research is truly necessary to continue to uncover the reasons behind the lack of racial and ethnic diversity in the field of dietetics. So this may include, again, focus groups or surveys, interviews, to really further describe student perceptions of the field. What's attractive to them? What's a deterrent? Continue to learn more about the barriers of the students of diverse backgrounds when entering dietetic education in the profession, and then to detect key support strategies for helping students of diverse backgrounds navigate education and the profession. So in conclusion, the need to diversify dietetics is clearly apparent. Solutions have been identified, and all stakeholders, whether it be dietitians in the field, students, leaders, the academy, and accrediting agencies are all in favor of this change. The time has come to engage, and it's time to mitigate the disparity and truly diversify dietetics.